Good evening and welcome to the February 5th meeting of the Zoning Subcommittee of the Revere City Council. All rise and salute the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk.
Roll call of the members of the Zoning Subcommittee. Councilor Guarino Sawaya. Here. Here. Councilor Kelly. Here. Here. Councilor Novoselsky.
Here.
Here. Councilor Silvestri.
Here.
Here. Ex officio Cogliandro.
Here.
Here. And Chairman Zambuto.
Here.
Here. Quorum is present. First item on tonight's agenda is special permit 23-263, Nicholas Jacoby, 164 Harris Street, requesting a special permit from the Revere City Council to modify a non-conforming use by restoring an abandoned pre-existing dwelling unit in the rear of the property at 164 Harris Street.
Mr. Simeoni.
Good evening. Mr. Chairman, members of the Zoning Subcommittee of the City of Revere. This evening, I represent Nicholas Jacoby of 164 Harris Street. He seeks a special permit in accordance with 1740-020A to modify a non-conforming use. Specifically, the particular locus that we're looking at, and the last time the council heard this was a special permit hearing on November 27, 2023. So I'll just briefly go over some of the facts. The locus is 164 Harris Street. It's in the RB district. It's lot number 4. It's 8,478 square feet with frontage of 60 feet. The locus has 2 non-conforming structures. One was a 3-family, which was constructed in 1930, and I've given you some exhibits from the original special permit application, and it would be Exhibit D, should you want to look at that particular structure. The second structure is a cottage, which was constructed in 1924. I provided you the building permit, building permit 560, to look at to establish the legality of that structure. That structure has since been abandoned. I can't tell you when it was abandoned, but at some point during the ownership it was abandoned. Therefore, the project before you, Mr. Chairman and members, is to basically retrofit, fix, improve that cottage, which is basically a studio with some garages. And we're asking the City Council to, as the special permit granting authority, to change that particular and to issue a special permit. And the test for which this honorable council ultimately bring will be that this existing non-conforming use will not be substantially detrimental from the proposed non-conforming use. I know you got a short agenda, Mr. Chairman, and I'm going to jump off as fast as I can.
Okay, because I don't want to interrupt you, but
I can understand.
You have a letter in, and I wanted you to get to that.
Time is money. So the bottom line is that, you know, we look forward to working with the ward councilman. The last time we were at hearing, there were 2 residents. We intend to have David Bosky as our architect working to establish a brand new building. We hope to have a meeting with the 2 residents and the ward council and to finish up and be before your honorable body. The only thing that's also before you, I don't know if the clerk has indicated that you might need an extension of the date.
That's what I was getting to. I received that
right.
email.
And my understanding, Mr. Chairman, is that you won't take any action on that, but rather on February 12th if we need to.
Right, correct.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members.
Thanks for being brief. We have a 6 p.m. hard stop here tonight, which is unusual. Madam Clerk. Ned, please.
What's
On that, just know that's going to it's going to an extension. You want to speak? You're the ward council. You have the right to speak on it if you'd like. I was just trying to speed it up. There's no vote going tonight. So
I misunderstood, Mr. Chairman. My apologies.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
So we will take that up on the 12th and probably extend the term.
Mr. Chairman,
unless it's, unless it's already and presented to everybody and everybody agrees.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask one quick question?
Go ahead.
Was the parcel ever being taxed as a four-family?
Say that again?
Was the parcel ever being taxed as a four-family?
I don't know the answer to that.
We've attached the assessor's records as one of the exhibits, and yes, I think it may actually be assessed right now as a four-family. But we would like to fix this unit up, and we're just coming to have the permitting aspect approved, Councilwoman.
Mr.
Any other
Chairman,
questions? Go ahead.
I'm just looking, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just looking at the agenda. Maybe I am still a little confused. Why is this being moved to the 12th? Why aren't we discussing it or voting on it tonight as a subcommittee?
Well, because there was an email asking for an extension. And so I wasn't going to take it up at all tonight because we're only limited to an hour, and we're going to need most of that for the bigger project. So that's going to be taken up in the zoning subcommittee again. On-
The next
no
one I
time
thought was
for
the
one?
26th.
The 26th, and then that exceeds the 90-day period.
Okay, so we will have to take action as to either give an extension or vote it down.
Correct.
Uh,
In
on
that case, I
at
would
the
like
next-
to speak, if that's okay.
Go
Mr.
right
Chairman.
ahead, go right ahead.
So I know that the plans here are to change this. They want to move the structure forward. They hired a contractor to do so. But I just want to speak on behalf of the residents who I just reconfirmed with just now that they do not want this. And former Councilor Visconti hit the nail on the head that, and I believe that this is going to set a terrible precedent in the city where we're going to be allowing people like myself who have a three-season porch or a shed in the back this size can then turn it into an apartment. I think we're looking at a can of worms. I'm not in favor of this, and if I can, even the plans that were submitted in 2008 are different from the 2024 plans. They don't have any parking spots listed. Also, from the city planner, they don't see how the circumstances have changed from 2008 when this was voted down initially, that we should grant it now. And if I may, read something from 2008. This is from when this was before the council then. Based upon the applicant's special permit application and the site plan review committee's letter, the city council finds that the so-called cottage located in the rear of Lot 4 at 164 Harris Street is an abandoned, non-conforming use and structure inasmuch as the structure has not been used for a period of 2 years as defined, Title 17, Chapter 17.4 of the revised ordinances of the City of Revere, and used the structure as a residential dwelling is therefore extinguished. Based upon the City Council's review of the applicant's plan, the City Council finds that the structure located in the rear of the lot does not meet the minimum side and rear yard requirements. The City Council finds the principal structure and the rear structure collectively exceed the maximum principal building coverage. And the City Council finds that allowing another dwelling unit with 2 additional parking spaces on this lot does not reflect the nature and purpose of the current zoning ordinance. And finally, accordingly, the City Council finds that to allow another dwelling unit with 2 additional parking spaces on this lot will be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming structure and use to the neighborhood. So this was in 2008. It's 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, and again, we'll take this up on the 12th.
We have to take a roll call on this.
It depends what you offer on your report, Chairman.
Apologize. Either to grant an extension or vote it down on the 12th, one or the other.
We still have to send a recommendation from subcommittee, don't we?
No, we'll just, because there's not enough information to report anything out at this point, as far as I'm concerned, so we can just take it up without a committee meeting, if that's okay.
So essentially, this will just go to the regular city council meeting?
Correct, yeah.
Whatever your will is, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the next item.
Next calendar item number is 24-028 Zorro LLC, requesting a special permit from the Revere City Council for the reconstruction, alteration, and extension of the pre-existing non-conforming residential use and structure for the purpose of constructing a 4-story, 11-unit residential apartment building at 1473 North Shore Road.
Right, and that's going to be continued, so I should have just called out the number of what we were going after.
And lastly, on the agenda, Council Order 24-029, Parkway Homes Owner LLC, 300 Washington Street, Newton, Mass., requesting a planned unit development special permit and a special permit for the increase in floor area ratio of up to 3 within the TED district to enable the appellant to construct a mixed-use development consisting of 250 residential apartment units and 1 commercial unit at 418 Revere Beach Parkway.
Attorney D'Ambrosio, and we got just under 45 minutes to get this done.
Good evening. Thank you, Chairman Zambudo, members of the subcommittee. Attorney Jerry D'Ambrosio, 14 Proctor Avenue. My intent is to speak just briefly on the project and then open it up for questions so that I may address anything. As you all know, it was a fairly lengthy presentation at the City Council meeting the other day. I do have something that I'm going to hand Madam Clerk. I'm going to ask that that be made part of the record and that I've made copies for her. I apologize for the last submission. And it really pertains to my opening statement here. Over the course of the last week, I've heard from many different people in our community. I've heard from politicians. I've heard from elected officials. I've heard from community organizations, and I've heard from regular people. And I've heard different things. The thing that amazed me about the last week is just a wide spectrum of people that I've heard from. There is a group that, a small group, that wants to see nothing built on this site. They'd be happy if there was a tomato patch there, which we all know is not going to happen. And then there's now a fairly large group of people that want to see more built there. They want to see more units, and they want to see more affordable housing as a result of it. So we have individuals and contingency groups that range from one side to the other. And so as we get into this project and you ask your questions, I put one thing out as an advocate. There's a great saying that I think should apply here, and that is simply put, to do not allow your version of perfection to destroy progress. Do not allow your version of perfection to destroy progress. Because it is progress to be removing a dilapidated 75-year-old trailer park with timed-out trailers, substandard living conditions that exist there. It is time that those trailers be allowed to leave there. It is time that something replace them. And at this point, the project that's been before you, that is before you, has been negotiated over the last year. It hasn't come up over the last week, but rather over the last year. We've met with the mayor's office, we've met with the ward councilor, we've met with other city councilors, we've met with different agencies, we've met with different neighbors, we've had abutters meetings. We've had quite a bit of involvement over the course of the last year. And so, again, I say, do not let your version of perfection destroy progress, because that's what could easily happen here. And you may wonder, what does that look like? I handed Madam Clerk a printout. Some people think that increased affordability requirements, increased interest rates do not impact the construction of residential units in the state of Massachusetts. This is a federal data sheet downloaded from the federal government, and it indicates what the building permits have been for 2021, 2022, and 2023. In 2021, we had 17,216. In 2022, we had 15,182. And in 2023, we have 11,746. This is, I suggest to you all, a hampering of progress over the last 2 years. What you see is, despite the entirety of Eastern Massachusetts being in a housing crisis, we see fewer and fewer building permits being issued. These are the stats that are before you. And again, what does that mean? It means that we are not affording our citizens the ability to live here at reasonable rates. And the less units that we have, the higher the rents go, and the less availability we have. And again, the data sheet that I gave you is the evidence. This is an enemy to progress, put frankly. That being said, I start that way only because I thought it was important that, I address maybe in a macro way some of the complaints I've heard from both sides over the course of the last week. That being said, I am here, the team is here to answer any questions. We'll do the best we can to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to open this right up to councilors at this point. Committee members to start with. None?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to start off by saying that, of course, I would like to see something built in this area, to build up the area, to clean up the area. I think that's all great. What I am not in favor of are 250 apartments that don't conform to the requirements or the criteria of a planned unit development within a TED zone. I would love to see some townhouses there, something with a community feel, something in the entertainment vein, so many things that we need rather than more and more apartments. I actually disagree. We do need housing, but housing cannot come at the detriment of public safety and putting a strain on our public resources in terms of the level of services we provide to our residents. And I fear that that is what's happening. And in fact, that was the mentality of everybody I spoke to when I was campaigning for 6 months, that is exactly what's happening. I also have an issue with the fact that the affordable housing component here being offered is 10%, yet this development is located within the new Smart Growth Overlay District, wherein the MBTA Communities Law applies, and that would require 20% affordable housing. So the special permit, in my opinion, it's kind of a way to circumvent, to get the benefit of building outside of these zoning constraints, but also only giving 10% affordable housing. And that's not what this transient MBTA Communities Law, that's not what the purpose of that was. Also, I haven't been hearing anything about senior housing, which we desperately need, housing for veterans, which we desperately need, in this 250-unit complex. And I believe it does directly contradict with the purpose and intent of our zoning ordinances, which are to lessen congestion, to prevent overcrowding, to avoid undue concentration of population, to facilitate, among other things, open space, to conserve health, to secure safety of our citizens. All of these things, I think, are in direct contrast. This development is in direct contrast to. And the biggest thing that I want to shed some light on is the floor area ratio, which in this district should be 1.5. I understand that you're requesting an increase to 2.6, not to exceed 3.0. I would argue that the floor area ratio is at the crux of why so many people in this city are complaining about traffic and congestion and overdevelopment. If we stayed within those constraints, those things would be combated and addressed and managed. But we're directly disregarding that, and it's an important tool to control size and intensity of development so that we can implement and ensure that existing infrastructure, such as public services, roads, and utilities, can adequately support the level of development in a given area. So that's my biggest issue with this development. If we kept the floor area ratio to a 1.5, and also, I mean, in this zone, you also have a requirement of 2 parking spots per unit. Now, I understand this is near the T, and we can maybe do a little bit about that, but the 179 is a far cry that this would really be requiring, under our zoning, 500 parking spots for 250 units, and we're down to 179. So, again, for all of these issues, I just think it should be, at the minimum, scaled back. It's not something that I would like to see built there. It's not to say I wouldn't like to see the area cleaned up, but with 250 apartments, from what I've heard from my constituents, it's not what they want. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Kelly. Council President Cogliandro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Mr. D'Ambrosio, I just wanted to be clear that the 25 affordable units are at 80% AMI.
That is correct. The proposed, so it's important to note, and if I can directly address that, under Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 9, subsection 13, which is the law that applies here. So there's no end run being done on the 40R ordinance that Councilor Kelly refers to. And I understand some of this stuff is complicated, and that's why I'd rather elucidate it a little bit. But the particular statute that this is being applied toward, and the application has been submitted, it's only 10%. It's a 10% requirement. That is the state law, not 20. It is 10%. And once that 10% is granted, it's at 80% of AMI. So it's not a local ordinance, it's the state ordinance. Not only that, once you've reached that 80%, Councilor Cogliandro, and the 10% is met, state law has been changed as recently as 2021 under the law which is called the Choice Housing Act, the Choice Housing Act, to allow for more housing, because the state recognizes that more housing is needed, okay, and that denser properties are needed, that we only need 6 votes on the city council. It is not even, it is, 2/3 is no longer required. 8 out of 11 is no longer required by state law. It drops to 6. And again, the reason, you know, Councilor Kelly brought up some points, and I understand those points from what she feels she has to articulate and what her constituency wants. I do understand, and I respect that. But I do want to be clear. The law is clear on this. It's 10%. It's not an end round on anything. And that, in fact, if we applied the 40R ordinance that Councilor Kelly brought up, because it's important to deal with this. If a developer comes in here tomorrow and applies for a housing project under 40R, you all are divested of authority. You all have no say in this process. In fact, it's just the opposite of what Councilor Kelly is saying. If it then becomes a ZBA matter, and the ZBA is empowered with broad discretion to lower all the restrictions, to maybe lower the parking to 0, to maybe increase density to an even higher number. That's the discretion that ordinance at that point in time gives to your local ZBA. The great thing about applying through the special permit process is that it allows this city council, it allows Councilor Kelly, it allows Councilor Cogliandro and everyone else to provide input on it, so that we don't get a project that's neither too small or too big. And by the way, this also doesn't account for a 40B project. A 40B project, if filed under a 5-acre site, I'd suggest could probably situate 1,000 units, okay? Probably 1,000 units. And so with a 40B project on a lot like this, what happens at that point is you lose all control, pretty much, on input on what should be there and not be there. Again, this particular developer, who has other properties in the city, wants good relations with the city, good relations with the city council, good relations with the mayor's office, has not taken that 40B approach, has not said, I'm just going to slam 1,000 units onto a 5-acre parcel. They've done just the opposite. They've worked with the city council and city hall for over a year now.
Okay, I don't want to cut you off, but,
I just have one more question.
yeah, no, go right ahead.
I'm sorry, Mr.
No,
Chairman.
no, I was talking to the attorney because he has a tendency to educate people and go on all night, but.
I don't know what you're talking about, Mr. Chairman.
I apologize.
Just one more question. Veteran housing was brought up. We have 25 affordable units. I'm okay with that. It's, as Councilor McKenna said at the meeting last Monday, it's a start. It's a start for the city. And we're beginning to move in the right direction of getting more affordable housing. With that said, can we take maybe 5 or 6 of these units and specialize them for veterans or people with special needs?
So the excellent thing about this project is it's important to note that the units, 38 of them are studio units and 106 are 1-bedrooms. So you're talking about significantly more than half, almost 2/3 are studios and 1-bedrooms. They're directly set up for veterans or elderly, right? Who else is going to live in a 1-bedroom? It's rent control, well, not rent control, but it's controlled in terms of who can apply. It's at 80% AMI, which is the exact AMI for Section 8 and veterans housing. It's always at 80%. So these units, these 25 units, I'd suggest are almost in a way, the affordable units directed to small families, individual vets, or at the same time, elderly. That's who's going to be living in them at 80% of AMI. There are no 3-bedrooms here.
So that means there's 10, or how many, are there 2 bedrooms in this?
There's 106 twos. So there's 106 twos, there's 106 ones, and then there's 38 studios. The 1-bedrooms and the studios are geared for affordable housing, right? Of the 25 units, we could break those up any way you'd like.
So I was just going to ask, which ones are allotted for the affordable units?
I think we'd be open-minded to that. We were thinking of across the board, having some at studios, some at
Right.
ones, and some at...
I'm just tired of we have families that live, 10 of them in a 2-bedroom apartment. We have people that are dying for affordable
Yeah.
housing in this city.
So the interesting thing about that, by code, you really can't have more than 2 people in a bedroom. So
We need some code enforcement then.
So that's the issue, right? You're really not supposed to have more than 2 per bedroom, but please.
Councilor Silvestri.
Thank you, Mr. President. Jerry, it's been back and forth. We know what people have been asking. We know what people have been hearing. Is some want 20, others want less, some want more. 10, is 12 a possibility? 12% a possibility?
So again, this project has been happening for a year now. And so we've gone back, every time there's been different negotiations points, we've gone back to the lender. There's a large common sense factor to this. If you're buying a house, you go to a lender, and the lender's looking at how much you make, what your deposit is, and what the house is. And they determine if they're going to give you a loan, right? We all go through this when we're buying a condo or a house. Well, it's the same thing on this kind of residential development. The application is put in, and the commercial lender, at, by the way, 9.5% today, not the 5 or 4 from a year ago, is looking at this and running models on how much can be affordable and how much isn't. It's been told to us as late as today, because we again try to run different numbers to try to play with the affordable number to see if we could get that number up. And the lender's saying, no, this is their number. They will not lend money beyond these parameters. And by the way, that's not just for us. The way I opened this hearing was by showing you a chart showing the plummeting number of permits that are being granted in eastern Massachusetts. A big reason for that is that these projects don't pencil out. The term pencil out simply means they don't make sense from a lender's perspective, and they're not loaning money on them. And because they're not loaning money on them, they can't be built. So they are stuck at the 10%. It's also important to know, because it's a great question, Councilor Silvestri. This is the first private sector affordable housing project in the city. The reason that's important is it's not a project that's being developed by an entity that's using state or federal grants to lower the construction cost. None of that is being done here. So those funds that are being allocated for Revere to do that over the next year are still there for another project. We're not consuming those resources. This is 100% private, and that's why those numbers matter at the end of the day. If we had the federal government giving us a 5 or a 10% a kickback on some kind of grant to help build it, it would be easier. But we don't have that right now. Now, it begs the question, if you all want to give up the CIT at, $2 to $3 million, you all want to give up all the mitigation, the millions of dollars in mitigation.
All right, enough.
Yeah,
Enough.
I thought it would end at that point, but so I'll stop.
I just want to clear up. We're voting on this special permit as it's written tonight. It's either up or down. That's what we're doing here tonight. And I want to change your terms. I think sometimes the good can be the enemy of the best, is the way I'd put it, instead of the eloquent way you put it. But that's the bottom line here. We're going to vote this project the way it's written, or up or down, and that's how it's going to go. Councilor McKenna? Yeah, Ira's on the committee. You want to see? I didn't see his hand. You up, Ira?
I didn't put my hand
Councilor
up.
Novoselsky.
But thank you. Mr. President, when somebody talks, they talked of a year ago about bringing this up. I only heard about this maybe 3 months ago. I was never involved in any of the negotiations. I wasn't involved in any of the neighborhood community meetings that they had. All I know is this was put in front of us and they said, take it or leave it. Well, listen, this is a negotiation world. And I don't care what the law says, there's still a negotiation that if somebody wants to do something, they could override and go beyond what the law says. I don't agree with Council the way he's talking today. Excuse me. He's talking about everything, but the super best for the city, or the best for the city. It's nice that they want to do 10%. I'm looking for more. And I want more. And I think we should get more. And they talk about the banks. I know the banks are always doing things that, that they want to ask for more, a better funding source for people to have to pay the loans back and the mortgages. But listen, I'm looking for more affordable housing. If I'm looking for 2 or 3 or 4 more units, I want 2 or 3 more units. I am one of 11 people here. And this is what I want, and I know several other people want the same thing. Counselor, you talked 45 minutes the other night, which is way beyond what you should have been allowed. And you're talking another 15, 20 minutes today, which you're just repeating almost everything that you said the other night. Listen, I want it straightforward, the bottom line. I'm not looking for any long-term or extra wordage. I want to say something else, but I don't want to. That you're speaking. If they want to come in and get my vote, they have to increase the affordable housing count. And I'm looking for a reduced AMI. And if they want to, as far as I'm concerned, reduce the parking, they could to a point. If they wanted to add a few units to make up the difference, let them. This is where the things have to be weighed. And this chart that you gave us, I think it's totally out of line. You talked about reduced permits. Sure, this period of time that you gave us was during COVID. It's number one. From 2021 to 2023. That's a COVID period. A lot of people weren't working and they weren't building. Also, too, we're running out of space. We don't have the property to build large units. This is one of the larger parcels that are left in the city to build, other than the 40R that has provided the opportunity for people to build if the people want to build. And 40R is optional. People don't have to accept it. you know, just because it was approved by the council and accepted by the council, you know, that shows that we want affordable housing in this city. So, listen, they got to come back with another number. This is my negotiation, and this is where I want to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor McKenna.
Counselor, can I just intercede real quick? I just conference with the developer. He has no issue with having a special designation for veterans and elderly. So we have no issue designating that the 10% affordable
Okay, we
be used.
can amend the special permit.
Yeah, absolutely. So that takes care of the veteran issue and elderly as well, if that's the way the council wants to go.
Thank you. Councilor McKenna.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I was in the negotiations with the developer and the lawyer for a year. At first, they came to me and said that they wanted 570 units. We talked it down to 420 with 70 units of affordable housing. Okay, with the interest rates and everything, and they needed an egress. That was my biggest thing in this property, is they needed a back egress. They couldn't come out. I asked for a lot. I did ask for a lot, but I did ask for an egress in the back, so in case there was an emergency or anything, you know, what they would have it. Plus, if they want, it was 420 units. All these people would be coming out of Beachmont, coming out of Winthrop Ave and going into Beachmont to go to Boston. So I was really upset about the traffic, and that was one of my biggest concerns, was the traffic. So I asked for an egress to go out of Lee Burbank Highway. They went to I think it was the barbecue place, someone, and asked if they could buy it. It was $10 million. For the barbecue place. So they didn't think it was the best price. So the negotiations stopped, okay? Then 2 months ago, the negotiations came back. It was 5% affordable housing. We negotiated to 10%, okay? So I think tonight, and he's not the first private developer. He's the second private developer in the city to include 25 affordable houses. I would really like to see that Revere residents get this, because I know with TND, they had a lottery, and I know in Beach Street, One Beach, there was only like 2 people from Revere that got housing, or was it that many? I don't know, but I would really like to see the majority of the Revere residents get this. So I don't know how we can work about this, but that would be great for me. I just want to say that $2 million of revenue will be given to the city of Revere every year. $2 million of revenue. We're talking about a $500 million school that we want to build. This is $2 million of revenue every year. 3% of CIT money will be given to Ward 1 to help Ward 1 adjust to the overflow of traffic. $500,000, which this is my pet, and I can't help it. Trees and the fire station is my pet. $500,000 to start, not the Beachmont Community Arts Center, the Revere Community Arts Center, and over $1 million to spend on building permits. Over $1 million. So we're talking about $3 million here in revenue and CIT money that will help if we build a school. $3 million will go to the school. And I think that's unbelievable. It will help with the school. I just want everybody to know that I just approved with TND 47 affordable units that will start in the spring in Ward 1 on Ocean Ave. There was no variances, there was no permits, there was no special permits. It was by right. So that's 73 units within the next 2 years of affordable housing in Ward 1, which is unbelievable, okay? I just think it's a great start for Revere. And I think these, along with all the prices that I've just given you, they're gonna do major work on this site. And this site has been blatant for years and years and years. It's disgusting. So, and I've been dealing with it for 8.5 years. So, I mean, I'm all in favor. I think it's a great deal. And if we can add a couple more houses, or we can give to veterans and seniors, I would love that, and most of them Revere residents. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor McKenna. Councilor Guarino Sawaya.
Could I add one more point? Not
Did
to
I do
interrupt.
that right?
I just talked to the developer. He's also willing, given the point that was just raised, to provide a Revere preference on the 25 units.
We'll add that as an amendment to the special
So,
permit.
a Revere preference, a veteran's preference, and
Very
another
cooperative.
preference.
Thank you
Yes,
very
sir.
much.
That was exactly what I was going to ask for. I was going to echo on what Councilor McKenna said, because I was at one of those meetings, and I saw what the residents wanted. They did want it. They do not want that trailer park there. And I think this would be great, and I don't think it would cause as much traffic as people are thinking. I think it would help out the entire community in that aspect. And if you can help the Revere residents first, that would be a plus.
It'll be the 70%, it could be stipulated too, there'll be a lottery. It will work. You'll get the 70% Revere preference. By law, it can't be more. You may have 100%, but 70% is the most that can be allowed for under fair housing law. So he has no issue with putting that in place.
Can you give us 2 more units?
They're not his units to give, unfortunately, they're the bank's. And so the bank is saying no. That's where we're at. It's not him. He wishes he could, but the bank that's lending the money, the lender, has done the modeling, and this is where they're at. That's why it's been an ongoing negotiation. It's not this notion that it's take it or leave it is just wrong. It's not take it or leave it. It's been going on for quite a while now.
Thank you.
Can I just say one more thing, Mr. Chairman?
Councilor McKenna.
Thank you. 8.5 years ago, there was a vote for Beachmont 1. And at first, they wanted 320 units. We got them down to 180, I think. But one of the biggest concerns was that the Beachmont residents didn't want this because of the fact that they said a lot of traffic would come out of it. And I didn't vote for it. But you barely, to 8 years now, and the city has grown, you barely see anybody coming out of that. And there's a hotel next to it, and you barely see anybody coming out of that, too. So, I mean, this is a trans-oriented building, and people walk all the time, because I have to stop and let them by. So, thank you. I just want to make a point. Thank you.
Thanks for the plug, Councilor McKenna. I downsized that project to 180. Councilor Argenzio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not a voting member of the subcommittee, but thank you for allowing me to give my opinion. I think this is an excellent project, and I think a lot of credit goes to Ward 1 Councilor Joanne McKenna. She's been in negotiations for a year. She's got it to the point where she feels as though it's a great project for her ward, the donation to the Arts Center, the cleaning up of Green Creek, the yearly maintenance of Green Creek. I think there's a lot of pluses here. Of course, we all would like to see more affordable housing, but like everyone has said, it's a start. We've got 25 units, and we can start building from there. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Argenzio. Councilor Kelly.
Thank you. So to Councilor McKenna's point, I believe there was a lot of documents that you submitted, Councilor, in support of this application. Was there an independent traffic study done, and what were the results of that?
Absolutely. It was attached as a part of the main submission. And in fact, I think someone brought up at the meeting, the last public hearing, that they wanted to see an of-right alternative use there as well. And so we had the traffic consultants, MDM, look at it and to provide numbers for the of-right alternative uses, each of which created significantly more traffic than,
But that's not really my question.
so what is
because
your question?
Just what was the impact on this particular
The-
project?
So the impact between, specifically, the impact between the trailer park that's there now and this 250-unit development is 22 additional trips in the morning peak hour, which means 5 cars coming in and 17 cars exiting, and then 15 additional trips in the afternoon peak hours. And that would be 9 entering and 6 exiting, okay? It's minimal. That report that was submitted for your consideration, no operational difference was the conclusion on the taxes, on the traffic count. It's important to remember that that trailer park has been operational with many cars and trucks going in and out of there, with heavy congestion. So this 250-unit development is very comparable in terms of the traffic that comes out of there. Comparable.
And you don't believe, or you don't see in your point of view that this would have a negative impact on, I know there are nights when we have Cataldo Ambulance here, we have the fire department, the police department, our response times are lacking because of lack of personnel, congestion, traffic, so you don't see this additional 250 units negatively impacting any of those services at all?
So it's just the opposite. If you look at the trailer park that's there right now.
But it's not there anymore, right? It's-
No,
I went-
no,
I went
that's not
by-
true.
but
It's still there.
I have pictures on my phone that it's gated up and it's do not enter.
So it's gated, but it's still there, which means that if there was a denial, right, it can be operational again,
But there's
to be
no one
clear.
living there right now in the
No,
condition
no,
that
no,
it's in.
right,
That's
because the
what I
goal
mean.
is to get it done. But that's, I can put a fence up around the city of Revere and close the entire city for 2 weeks and say there's no traffic coming from it. But that wouldn't be true, would it? Because as soon as that fence comes down, the city of Revere is going to emanate traffic. So this particular trailer park right now has a fence on it.
Let me rephrase
because
that
we-
in terms of habitability. There's no one there. Nobody is inhabiting that
Oh,
area right
But
now.
only because everybody has left. But
Right.
as soon as you take it down, right, you have to compare, Counselor, you have to compare apples to apples,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so if you're comparing apples to apples, this unit, this 250-unit building is comparable to the trailer park and much, much better than any of the alternative units. Someone said the other day, hey, let's create a hospital there. Yeah, I'd like to have a hospital there. A hospital
All right,
creates
we're gonna have-
I got 2 more questions and I
5,400.
get it.
We're going to have to do
Real
this quick.
Okay,
Because
real
we're going
quick.
to not have time to vote.
Real quick, okay, you're subdividing as well. So
Yes.
are you planning on doing another 250 units on the other lot that you subdivide?
So what
At
we
this
did
point in
is,
time?
we subdivided to A and B, equally divided parts. The only thing that's before this city council is Part A. If anything were done on Part B, if there's any proposal to come forward, it would need your vote.
Okay, and.
And by the
in
way, Council,
terms
if I
of-
could just say one thing, thankfully, it needs your vote. If you went 40R, it
Yeah,
wouldn't
but
need your
there's
vote.
but there's a trade-off there, because if you went 40R, I agree that you wouldn't need this council's permission, but you're also going to have to do that 20% of affordable housing, so it's a quid pro quo in that regard.
Much bigger project, though.
Okay, listen.
Much bigger.
Councilor McKenna made a point that in the other project, she actually got them to downsize. They were at 300 and something units, and they went down to 100 and something units. That's what I would like to see. I would like to see the 1.5 floor area ratio maintained. I would like to see that
I got to interrupt you
maintained.
because at this point,
Thank you.
that was negotiated before it came before this body. Yes, it was. No. We're talking about One Beachmont. She mentioned One Beachmont. That was negotiated before it got before
Right,
this
but I'm
board.
making a
All right,
point that it
enough.
was asked to be downsized.
All right, we don't have any time. Counselor Silvestri.
Just one quick question, and I appreciate the push for veterans housing. No one's a bigger push for veteran than myself. But what many people don't understand is if a veteran's 100% disabled, they're actually over the 80% AMI to benefit from that unit. Would they be willing to make at least half the units that they're making affordable multi-bedroom units? Because I think we've discovered here that families need the help the most. So can we say 12 units of affordable will be there's 106 going, we're putting families need the help.
They have no issue spreading that 25 units across all three, studio, ones, and twos. There's no objection to that. None at all. And it could be used for families, the two bedrooms.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Mello.
Hey,
Counselor.
just had some questions around that traffic study you made. Is that based on the current parking ratios that you have at the site? Or is that based on like the number of units that the site would hold?
So the traffic count is based on the actual hard number of cars driving up and down on Winthrop Ave and what's coming out of the park. So that's just simply based on what the current traffic is on the 110, and then a projection through science is what it would be on the 179 parking spots that would accompany this particular project.
So it's a projection based on the amount of parking you would have on site?
In part, yes. In part, yes. It's also in part because it's within a half mile
Sure.
of the MBTA station. What that has told us, if you were to look at the other buildings on the beach, there's a board in Massachusetts that actually does an audit to see what they're using. They're running at a 0.59 right now. So that means if you go to 500 Ocean Ave and walk in there at 6 o'clock, on average, you're going to see that only 6 out of 10 parking spaces are used because everybody else is hopping on the blue line and going in and out, and they don't own cars. Okay, I can tell you, I have 2 kids that live in the city. They live on Revere Beach. Neither one of them owns a car.
Counselor, so right now, I think you're offering what, 0.73?
0.71, I believe it is.
0.71. Would bringing this down to 0.59 or 0.6 reduce your cost to your client?
No, because it's about unit count. It's not really about parking. It's about unit count. And right now with these plants, the plans that are in there that the bank has offered to lend on, these are the plans that they've offered to lend on.
But
And-
if you did,
and
if
so
you
if you-
did less parking and more units to
Right.
allow for, I don't know, 12% affordability, could we get to a sweet spot where,
So that's the machinations of construction, and that's why 40R allows you to build to get more affordability, but you need to build more. Once you go beyond 5 or 6 stories, you have to go to a steel and glass construction. So you can't just add 5 or 10 units. You've got to literally add multiple floors of unit to justify the cost.
my question is not that you're adding 5 more units so you can add 5 affordable units. My question is, if you do an increase in units and
Absolutely.
reduce the parking, could you do more affordability?
Absolutely. When you blow up the number of units, when you make the building a lot bigger, it's remember that under a PUD, you can go 10 stories high.
Yeah.
Right? You can go 10 stories under a PUD. You can go up to
Okay,
3.
we got a
So-
hard stop at 6
Mr.
o'clock, so
President,
I'm
That's
going
why
to
this.
have to cut this
so,
off.
To quote, I apologize, but to quote Goldilocks.
You're not going to get a vote tonight.
Mr.
No, to
President.
quote Goldilocks, it's not too hot, it's
Point of
not too
order.
cold, it's just right. So it really runs down the
We'll vote
middle.
tonight.
But
Mr.
thank you.
President, point of order.
Who's that? State your point.
Mr. President, it seems though this is being rammed through tonight. I was surprised that we had a committee meeting on a non-council night, that it was tonight. And I don't know what the rush is to make this happen. So I'm going to, and a lot of people still have a lot of questions on the council and concerns on the council. And I'm going to move at this time as a committee member that this be tabled and another meeting be held following this. There's no rush on time. So I think we ought to table it, and I'm making a motion, an official motion, to table this
Well, I'm not in favor of that, but we'll call for a roll call.
roll call.
To table the matter in committee, Counselor Guarino Sawaya?
No.
No. Counselor Kelly?
No.
No. Counselor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Silvestri?
No.
No. Council President Cogliandro?
No.
No. And Chairman Zambudo?
No.
No, the matter will not be tabled.
Now, roll call on the voting out favorably the proposal that is in front of us, not the supposed maybes. The proposal that's in front of us.
Mr. Chairman, point of information.
With the amendments that were made for the, oh, I'm sorry.
I just want to make sure the amendments are made, that it's
Yes.
mixed use throughout
Right.
the affordability.
All the amendments we talked about, the clerk has been noting that, and they will be in the special permit.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Roll call on the PUD and the special permit as amended regarding the 25 units to be spread over for veterans and senior housing, preferable for Riviera residents up to 70% over the 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom, and studio However, they divided up by 25, between the 25 units. Counselor Guarino Sawaya?
Yes?
Yes. Counselor Kelly?
No.
No. Counselor Novoselsky?
Present.
Voting present. Counselor Silvestri?
Yes.
Yes. Council President Cogliandro?
Yes.
Yes, and Chairman Zambudo.
Yes.
Mr. President, point before we make this official, I'd like to change my vote to yes.
Okay.
Councilor Novoselsky changing his vote to yes. The special permit and PUD has received a favorable recommendation, will be reported out at the meeting of February 12th.
No further business. Thank you all.
Thank you, thank you.